Funky Politics.
We're surprised because it's something new today relative to what he said, 3 days ago. The actual substance of what he said is new. But in terms of it being, being surprised that he said something offensive, that's not surprising to me anymore. But what I do have deeper concerns about is what it's doing to the level of discourse in our country. And welcome to the Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. Back off of hiatus. What a funky summer it has been. Joined back in the studio. Happy to be alone with my co-host, Tasha D.
Hey, y'all.
And
back in the building.
In the building.
Rainmaker.
And
Maker.
And that other masculine voice you're hearing right now is none other than Doc Ward.
Funky Politics on your dial, always bringing it to you real, right, and funky. You can slap it, you can flip it, you can scratch it, you can mix it, you can rap it, you can speak it. If it needs to be adjusted, you can tweak it, you can bump it, you can crank it, you can bump it in your trunk, but no matter how you deal with it, it is still the funk. Funky Politics, winter, spring, summer, fall.
That's what the man said.
We don't go on hiatus.
That's what she said.
We don't go on hiatus.
I don't even know what that
take a
means.
little break.
We never go on hiatus.
A little breakity break.
We might take a break, but the funk never takes a break. We can't go on hiatus because they always hate us. We have to be moving. We have to be rocking. We have to be rolling.
But I tell you what, man, the news has not stopped being funky all
doesn't
summer.
go on hiatus
It has been hot. I mean, as in 3 letters in there. I didn't get that right.
3 letters in there. H-O-T.
H-O-T is hot.
It's been H-O-T like H-E-L-L down here in the country.
For real. But it's also been very, very hot politically. Y'all, we got a lot to get to in this show. It's going to be a show of funky politics today, a show of funky topics. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the current political environment, including the latest with, 2-3 dozen Democratic candidates.
This is the longest, hottest summer that anyone in this country is going to experience, whether it be financially, socially, politically, spiritually. This is a time that we have to be healed, because heat brings healing, right? Don't you? When you want to get something clean, you put it in the hot water, right? In the hot water. You don't clean anything when it's cold. What do you clean when it's
Some
cold?
stuff just need a little bit of a chill on it.
Nah, but this stuff needs to be burnt up.
Okay.
We have to start burning up the seeds of racism. We have to start burning up the seeds of all this cultural tribalism. We have to start burning these things up.
But hold on. Let me tell the people what's coming up on the show today. So we're going to be talking about the Democratic candidates. We'll get into that in just a moment. But
we might have to burn some. We got to burn some of them up too. It's just too many.
Oh, 900.
We got to burn because they just don't go away.
We'll also be talking some about
like cockroaches in the morning. Something like that. They just keep on going. But we'll
also be talking about the latest with the Eric Garner case and the fact that the officer will not be charged in that situation. We'll get to talking about some with the squad and what's going on between the president.
And burning up the Twitterverse.
And the ultimate question that I don't know really needs to be answered or may have already been answered.
What's that?
Is the president racist?
Yes. Now, the show's over. It's time for the close.
All of that and more.
What else?
All of that and more today on Funky Politics. But first, how was y'all's break? Did you do anything interesting? Go anywhere?
Yeah, listen to all this ridiculousness that's going on the news,
I'm scared to go somewhere.
That ain't no vacation.
I was supposed to go on some trips. I'm scared I can't get back in the country.
No, I took my family out a bunch of places. We went a bunch of places. Still with school not exactly being back, we still got more to go, but we've had a lot of fun in the midst of all that's going on this summer. And I think, if you have family older than you, younger, you got to tell everybody, that's the most important thing right now in your life. You should always cherish your family. From your family comes your blessings. And we are blessed people in this world.
Absolutely.
And in this nation. We need to act like it.
Did either of you see the debates? And who was your sleeper candidate in the debates? Because I don't know if I'm all the way Yang gang, but I was glad he was on stage, and I'm glad he.
I was too.
Is that like an official?
I think he'd be a great VP. For somebody.
Is that like an official Yang? I'm on the Yang gang.
By the way, we're talking about the Asian American presidential candidate, Andrew Yang, the guy who's promoting $1,000 a month for every American over the age of 18,
and doesn't own a tie.
And he owns one. He didn't wear one at that debate. I thought it was cool. That fits his style, though.
No, I think I understand he's trying to be sort of that anti-candidate. But if you're in a debate, something that's that important, that's the problem we have now. We got to respect our institutions. Get a tie.
Nope.
Go down to
Nope.
Banana Republic and put on a tie. Don't come out looking like you just going to Las Vegas. You need to come and wear a tie and be
Nope.
prepared. Otherwise, you'll be like him and you'll be stuck with doing nothing but trying to cuss to get attention, which is what he did during most of the debate.
The tie has is no indication of what you're going to be prepared to do. And I think for too long, folks show up looking good, and we ain't got nothing to hide.
I ain't said now the tie looking good.
When we talk about all the stuff, everybody who got us in these bad situations that we talking about, they wear ties every day.
Oh, so
I think we need to
She
be
said
clear.
if you wear a tie, then you're going to...
I'm just saying we need to be real clear that respectability and the systems and adherence to these artificial constructed systems versus focusing on what really matters. Like the time for that is over. Like that's so boomer Xer. Like the next two generations got no energy for that. So, I mean, again, Yang on the strength of his principles may not win this, but the other guys, the two old dudes who are just, part of the system, status quo, like people aren't really feeling that. What people are feeling is, am I going to be bankrupt going to college? Mm-hmm. Am I going to be able to freaking get sick without, again, going bankrupt? Am I going to be able to live in an environment where I don't have to walk around in a gas mask and then we leaving our children poison water? And the rest, the boomers, again, the boomers and the Xers are like, fine, these things won't be your issues. You be dead and gone, so you don't really have to care. Same, so the old dudes can say that. Like,
but who on this candidate of 25,000 people is actually has the agenda that's addressing what you're talking about? It's all fine.
Warren?
Marianne Williamson.
But
man, if you don't,
Politics powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. No. I got to get to Marianne Williamson. Though.
she want to move us to Australia, man.
Yeah.
Look, these people ain't going to be on the ballot that much longer, no way. So
Well,
let's talk about them for a minute, right?
Yeah.
We've already lost two, I think, off the ballot.
Yeah,
But we lost
yeah.
two when we
Well, I
gained
think
one.
we got one back, though.
We got one.
But no, I mean, everybody was talking about Marianne Williamson. For y'all that don't know, she was the lady who had on, I think, the turquoise suit, who
She
was talking about,
she need to have on a tie.
Australia.
Mr. President,
real
I will
tight.
meet you on the battlefield of love.
Yes.
That lady, right?
That lady.
Look, I know that lady ain't going to win no presidency.
She also supported third-party candidates in the previous.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that I
In a major
am
way.
refreshed. One of the things that I like about having all of these Democratic candidates in there, and I admit I can't keep up with all of them, is that the American people are getting a fair chance to hear some ideas we ain't never heard before.
Truth.
And I think
we
that-
heard them, but no one ever dared endeavor to bring them on a presidential platform.
True.
Right.
They've been in the works for years. Nothing is new under the sun. I'm just basically going back and saying, who on this stage actually has a plan to address the things that you were talking about, from climate change to
Elizabeth
health care
Warren.
to so she says Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren.
Go for Pocahontas.
I
for
like
president.
I like Elizabeth Warren. Again, Here's
Here's the thing. I don't like her as a person. I wouldn't hang out with her. I wouldn't get beers. But when we ask
think
the
I would.
question
I
about
think I would.
who has real strategies,
Right.
And
real
plans.
ideas, policies, I'm a policy wonk. I got a whole degree. I know macro, benefit, cost.
Right.
And I think that the platform that Elizabeth Warren has put forth is realistic and serious. She's run the numbers.
Right.
She's looked at what the nation can afford to do in a way that is mutually beneficial to those who are most in need, the middle class and the working class, and definitely the poor, disengaged, without unsettling rich folk so much so that they trying to bail out the system, right? And so there has to be that balance versus the candidate who says, "Oh, rich people, your life won't change much at all."
Right.
Well,
Meaning, I'm
I
gonna
guess,
keep y'all nice and comfortable in the status quo.
so then the question then becomes, I think the ultimate question is, A, who's got the plan to do all the things that you had said earlier, but also who has the ability to get any of it past the Senate that's going to have an overwhelming majority of Republicans.
Well, I'm curious about, just kind of thinking,
Don't just discount
Well, seeing
that.
as how
Who's
the
sell
current
it?
Republican president can't get anything past the Senate either, I don't.
Well, I don't think he has anything that's worth
I already
getting
know
past.
that
But who's going to have something that they can sell to the Senate? Now, I do believe the Senate's going to be a little tamer if you have a Democratic president, because there's no Donald Trump to sort of hold people's feet to the fire and have them all scared of going against him. So now all of a sudden, Lindsey Graham becomes a regular person all over again. The rest of the Senate folks become regular people, and they stop all this other stuff that they're doing right now. They stop becoming, Trump background singers. But you'll still have a policy. You still have people on that platform. They're going to have to sell these policies of climate change, of health care, of criminal justice reform the real way, of all the things that we've been talking about, who is going to be able to do that?
And we going to dig into that in just a moment. Hang out right there where you are. Don't touch that dial. We will be right back on the Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. Don't go away.
The whole funk, nothing but the funk. Riffin' on Jazz.
I'm Howard Robertson, one of your hosts for Riffin' on Jazz. Riffin' is your weekly visit with friends where we dive all in to that classic African-American art form called jazz. So don't miss Riffin' with me and my man Melvin Massey every week on your favorite broadcast and podcast platforms.
Riffin' on Jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network. KUDZUKIAN!
I expect to go to Coachella in a helicopter. I want some
Coachella in a helicopter.
Moroccan type.
This is why we came to the KUDZUKIAN Network.
The next Beachella, they gonna drop us on the stage. It's
look.
gonna be like BNP said. We gonna sell out under black people and make me feel safer.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
You
It's
sell
like,
out with white people, scary.
It
I
is.
know.
I feel like with the people here at KUDZUKIAN, once we sell out, like they'll be the ones to be like, all right, y'all acting real light skin
Simmer
right
down.
now.
Y'all acting real light skin.
Black Nerd Power on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
KUDZUKIAN! More of what you're fucking for.
Back on the Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. Lee Eric Smith alongside Tasha D and Doc Ward. What's up, team?
Hey, when
So
And you're listening to a day of funky topics. It's a bunch of funky topics going on. We've been away for a while, so we're trying to catch up a little bit. And one of the things that's been going on, it broke news just recently here, is that, of course, we're familiar with the I Can't Breathe shirts that were inspired by the death of Eric Garner in New York.
The murder.
And we learned this week that the
murder.
police officer who
Murdered.
was responsible for the death of Eric Garner
Murder.
will not
I
face
could go for manslaughter.
criminal
at least.
charges. Will not face criminal charges.
Unlawful
Team,
killing of another with malice aforethought. That's what murder is.
for the sake of perspective, Doc Ward is an attorney.
Into it.
No, I just play
As
one on
is
podcast.
Tasha,
I just
so-
play one on podcast. That's the way I look at it now.
But no, for real though. I mean, it's two different things to kind of look at here, because one is the legal, whatever the legal standard is, and
Right.
I'm not a lawyer, you guys are,
Right.
But whatever the legal standard is for filing criminal charges against that officer, that's one thing. The other thing is the ever present court of public opinion, and the court of public opinion feels like that man need to be put away.
Murder.
I mean, so Doc and I we're gonna fight about murder
I'm
versus
just
manslaughter.
I'm just
because see,
telling
some
you.
of this is when you put a description before a jury that's so narrow, and when you say with malice aforethought, and you say that they have to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's
that
where
bar,
the line is, isn't
that
it?
bar is too high.
All you need
Versus if you say manslaughter, right? It can be an accidental killing.
Well, with
recklessness. Because again, if there had been a manslaughter charge, right? Whatever the maximum is for a manslaughter charge, you could have gotten a conviction on that. But we didn't go for that.
So what was
it's like, so you get all or nothing. And the nothing you get is you want a murder conviction, you will not get a murder conviction. Like in the recent history, when have we seen police acting in the line of duty convicted? The one black guy who killed a white woman, that's the most recent incident in history. When have we seen a white police officer kill an unarmed person of color, be convicted?
Did that happen in Baltimore?
16 shots later, did it happen in Chicago?
But I believe
A little bitty, teeny tiny sentence.
Yeah, but I think what
that's negligible.
But the thing that makes it so bad, I think the trend of what you're seeing is that the states generally will not prosecute, or at least will not convict. Juries will not convict police officers for deaths of anyone, but particularly African American men, because it sends some type of message that the state's law enforcement division is not doing their job to protect the citizens, and then all of a sudden puts a chilling effect on the officers. That's what I've been told. That's what I've been told in interviews we've had here with police personnel. However, what about the chilling effect on the African American community when it comes to officers when you're getting pulled over for something as minor as a stoplight, not even running a red light, but running a stoplight or some minor traffic infraction? So now, if you're pulled over by the police department, I've got to sit here sweating, worrying about what type of individual am I going to get that's going to pull me over and get out of their car and start asking me for routine identification and other things. Yeah. Are they going to be irate and make me get out of the car? Are they going to come here with a gun drawn? Or what's going to be the situation? And that should not be the reality of anyone.
Well, FBI warned you what you were going to get. In 2006, they told us.
I understand
They sent a whole set of memos saying,
but that should not be.
We have a great concern.
That should not be our reality.
That our law enforcement capacities are being infiltrated by white supremacists.
And if
we fast forward that clock to about 2016, and we look at the data, and we see that over 5,000 unarmed people of color have been killed by law enforcement officers. So there's no what if who you're going to get. Right. And we now have had an incident in which several large metropolitan police forces have had to go through and remove officers from their service because they have been clearly affiliated in social media groups, private groups that are white supremacists, white power organizations affiliated. And once they've aligned the degrees of misconduct, abuse allegations, excessive force, aligned to those members of those groups, there is a clear, direct correlation.
But look at what you just said.
So that's who you're going to get when you get pulled
off.
over.
You said the federal government.
Lawyers. Stop. I want to say something. Objection. No.
See, that's what happens when you get the journalist to come in.
Right. He don't know what to do once he gets the objection.
Says objection.
No, seriously, though. One of the things that I hate about these cases, though, is that, in the court of public opinion, there are nuances to these cases.
Absolutely.
Like none of them are the same. Like what happened with Michael Brown, who should not have died, isn't the same as what happened with Eric Garner, who should not have died. Isn't the same as...
What do you mean? They're all the same.
Nor Laquan McDonald, who shouldn't have died.
Right, but
they're
what I'm saying
is...
No, but what I'm saying
I'll tell you the similarity when you're done, but they're all the same.
What I'm saying is that each of these cases are different. They have their own people involved, their own nuances. And those nuances don't get talked about, I think, enough. For instance, here's one, kind of going back to what you were saying. We were talking about the thing in 2006 where that you were mentioning.
FBI report.
One of the things that I also thought about was right around that same time, you got a lot of folks coming back from Iraq, from Afghanistan with military training, right? But also maybe some level of PTSD who find themselves having jobs on police forces that maybe they got some issues that they're not worked all the way through. I'm not saying that's the cause of it.
But the data isn't. But that's not the data that we're seeing aligned and manifest.
That a cop coming from Iraq has PTSD, therefore he can shoot black people because they seem to be like the people where he came from.
I was about to say I don't think the data is showing that degree of correlation.
What I'm saying is that there are veterans on many police forces who have undiagnosed mental disorders,
and there are veteran racists that have been racist against African Americans from the day they were born. Because I'm going to tell you, before there was Iraq, before there was an Iran, before there was even a 9/11, there was a Rodney King getting his ass beat thoroughly in the LA streets, and a riot that occurred when those officers in a state court were set free, and it took a federal court to say that there was a civil rights violation. Right. So that was before any of this stuff came up about any of the things that were happening in Afghanistan, before you had any kind of wars. This is something, even before Rodney King, there were police officers that were pulling over African Americans on streets. And I know you know about what's the movie that just came out we talked about?
We just need to go on back to slavery, to the 13th Amendment.
What is it, the Brown Trail or the Green Trail, the Green Book? The Green Book, and it wasn't just racist individuals that would pull people over, it's even law enforcement.
You're listening to the Funky Politics powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. I'm not saying that law enforcement in the United States doesn't have a history of racist behavior. What I'm saying is it is entirely possible, and in fact also true, that there are many honest, hardworking law enforcement individuals who are just trying to do their job.
No one disputes
and
that.
get lumped into this.
No one disputes that.
Yeah, but it doesn't get said enough.
But it's
because
the
when
same-
people talk about this way, it's like the cops, man, all the cops, the cops are racist.
I'm gonna back
and
you
they're not
up.
saying,
I'm gonna back you up off of that because
they're not
what Dr.
saying
King
some
said.
of the cops are racist.
Remember when Dr. King said, "You know how we let injustice live and grow?
How?
Good
Do
people
nothing.
do nothing.
Right.
So you give me a police force and you ain't got but 10 bad cops, but you got 100 who don't say anything.
Yep.
You got 100 who gonna
110.
stand behind the blue shield,
Wow.
bruh.
Yeah, I'm not.
They got nothing coming.
Yeah,
they
I'm
got
not-
nothing coming. When you are unwilling to hold your own forces accountable, when you are unwilling to police yourself, you lose the trust of the people.
Wow.
Rightly,
I have
lose
nothing
trust
but the
of
highest
people.
level of respect for people who get up in the morning not knowing it's
Absolutely.
going to be their last day. I have several friends that are police officers.
Absolutely.
But it's not an issue of trying to have the compliments outweigh the bad things. When people lose their lives unjustly, it doesn't matter whether it's one a year or one every 100 years. That is an issue that we need to address. I said police officers get up every day not knowing whether or not they're going to live or die. Black men should not be getting up every day with the same issue just because they're black men driving in cars, doing whatever the case may
women,
be.
Sandra Bland.
Now, we've got to do better about the way that we administer justice, the psychological way that we deal with each other. I understand being a police officer is a very highly stressful job. But if you have racism in your heart, if you have culturalism in your heart, tribalism in your
We
heart.
all do.
But if it's to a degree where it does not allow you to reason, then that is a problem. And if you're not willing, then I don't think any I've never heard a police officer go, turn his badge, turn his gun, turn his cuffs, turn his credentials and say, you know what? I don't like a certain group of people that I'm around every day policing, so I'm not fit to be a police officer.
In that case,
I've never seen it happen. I don't think I'll ever see it happen.
we've all watched racism
So
more.
So it's going to be up to us to call that out when it happens.
Yeah, well, people aren't abject. They aren't out racist anymore. In fact, people can have racist attitudes.
They not out racist no more.
You've
When
been on
they
vacation,
when they,
man.
when
You
they
really been
walking
vacation.
around talking about send her back. No, they at you.
Well,
what I'm talking about is
before they said send her back though, when you had
Hold on. We
hundreds-
get into that in the next segment. Hold
hundreds
on.
of, I'm not going to get into that. I'm saying
Okay.
you've got hundreds of children right now sitting on the Texas border, Florida border.
That ain't racist.
You know, behind
That's just
fences, more
immigration
people than you
policy.
have beds. You know, the overwhelming smell of feces and urine in a place. Children that are contemplating suicide
Mamas
because
drinking
of the
out of
conditions that
toilets.
they're in. And a bunch of
That
other
ain't racist
substandard
though.
conditions.
That ain't racist.
That's not racist?
That's not what I said. What I'm saying is
You
the
said it's not
face
outward
of-
racist. That's
I
the
said
face of
the
it.
face of racism has changed. What I'm thinking about is it's not like it used to be 100 years ago when somebody could walk down the street and just say nigga and grab you and take you out and lynch you.
No, they just
That's
put you. They just
different
put you in a
than what
concentration
it
camp
is
and
now,
let you sit there and crap
what-
on yourself.
And when I get finished with this sentence, you'll hear me saying
I want to hear it.
when I get finished, you'll hear me saying that people can have racist attitudes without even being aware that they have racist attitudes, and they don't manifest until they find themselves in that high stress situation of a side of the car stop. I'm saying people don't show up. Like people are trying to do their job, man.
The benevolent racist is the one who does not have power.
But they're not.
I'll give it to you. Like the little old man who's
The
at the
friendly
grocery
Klansman.
store who called me a nigger when you're a nigger and it don't have no effect on my life. Dude, you can be racist all you want to. But when you have power, that is the core definition of racism. That you have prejudice against a group for an immutable characteristic, a trait that people cannot change, and you then assign a degree of power, either systematically or in your rare instance, that we call privilege, right? Because you just can pull rank because you can. And so this notion that is in our heart and we don't really know it, and I ain't giving people no pass on that because they know when they're disparaging, right? Like this idea that I didn't really know. No, you might didn't know. You didn't think I was gonna call you on it.
It's
You
a
didn't think you were gonna get
prejudice.
called.
It's a
You didn't think
prejudice. It's a
anybody
prejudice.
would
Yeah,
bring it
it's a
to
prejudice.
light for you.
And what I'm saying
But
is,
you know it ain't, because you don't
Why-
want that for yourself.
while we're quoting Dr. King, though, I'm just saying that we are not going to defeat prejudice with more prejudice. And if we don't deal with the nuances of each of these cases, then what we have is 3 people on a microphone saying the cops is racist, and
But
somebody
that's not what I'm not
Nobody
saying the cops
said
is
that. None of
racist.
us
but
said that.
somebody might hear that in this
That's what
conversation.
I
You see
want
what
them
I'm
to hear.
saying?
I'm not trying
And
to
then
get them to
someone might
that.
hear all
I'm
the other things that we're talking about as far as the solutions is concerned too.
Yeah.
That's why you have to stay tuned to Funky Politics powered by KUDZUKIAN Network. But we never said that all the cops are racist. Just like I'd never say the president's racist. I just say the racist believe that he's racist.
Hold on, but
Thank
one
you,
more
Andrew
thing.
Gillum.
Now,
Thank
I
you
will
for
say
that
this now.
one.
Say it then.
This is
Say it. Go
racist.
ahead.
What I'm about to say is exactly racist.
Wait a minute, just let me-
and I wanted to throw a
Okay, now
rock
you
at the
gonna be
TV
racist.
when I
Say it.
saw it.
Now you're gonna be racist.
This is the flip
Oh,
side of law enforcement.
okay,
Watch
cool.
this.
Okay.
Remember that y'all see that video when that security officer stopped that police officer?
No.
and pulled a gun on.
It was a white
black
security guard
police officer stopped by a white security guard.
stopped by a white security guard and told he had to leave the building because he was not allowed to have a gun in there. And the officer, he complied. He was like, look,
in his uniform.
in his uniform. Look, I ain't saying racism doesn't exist. I'm just saying we're not going to elevate the conversation if we say all of the cops are racist, all of the
I don't think
Republicans
it-
are racist. That's just not
Well-
true. Some of them are. I ain't saying some of them. Some of them have racist attitudes that they may not be aware of, and there are quite a many of them that are just decent, honest, good, hardworking people that just want to get home at the end of the day, just like the rest of us.
But the thing about
You
it
might
is,
have to kill a few
but when
people.
when the words and ideals come from people that have been historically suppressed and oppressed and still live under that same suppression and oppression, the ability to cherry pick who's racist, who's not, who's just prejudiced and who's not, who's racist but
a
has
little
no
bit.
power, who's
racist.
powerful but is not racist. That ability for those, I can't go picking when my neck is under your foot.
Wow.
So we've
Oh,
got to do better. We've got to do better.
put a pin in that. Very heated debate. Very funky team. I like that very much.
real right.
Stay right there, listener. Don't go away. We'll be right back on Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
The whole funk, nothing but the funk.
The Chairman's Perspective.
Hi, this is Lee Eric Smith. Let's take a look inside Shelby County government as we unleash some of the views of our very own chairman of the Shelby County Commission, Van Turner. The Chairman's Perspective on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, KUDZUKIAN.com, or your favorite podcast provider.
The Chairman's Perspective on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
R&R on Sports is proud to be on Sirius XM.
So what's R&R stand for?
Real talk and relevant sports issues.
It's racial and relative. We're brothers from the South. We can relate.
R&R on Sports on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
More of what you're fucking for.
And we're back on Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. Lee Eric Smith alongside Doc Ward and Tasha Downey.
We are the only show in America that's allowed to stank because we are funky up in here. Funky.
Your funk self.
So get your roll on. Roll it.
Funky than a can of wet Magic Shade.
Okay.
Look here. So, in
I thought
news,
Magic Shade was always wet. Oh, you got mixed
Funky
in
than a
water.
can of sardines.
Then
How about
it-
that?
it's definitely funky, though.
then it take the hair off your earlobe.
So,
Yeah.
in news that might not actually be news, our president, Donald Trump, tweeted something offensive recently. And rather than take it back,
Tweeted something offensive recently. That's every day.
Listen.
right, that's why I said
So you have to specify.
that's why I said it's not
You have to
news.
specify. Okay, I was going to say.
This man just went in on some sisters, right?
But in this case, I'm gonna let the sister step up. Go on, hit him, TD.
At the end of the day, like this guy just went in on some women. I mean, he has proven that he has no
Of
regard
color.
for women,
Of color.
and particularly these are women of color. But you walk up to a woman and grab her right by her pussy. You walk up to a woman, kiss them, put your hands on them, do whatever. Again, you've
It's all cut out the same
credible
cloth. Yes.
allegations of sexual assault, rape. So this, to me, is just typical behavior of a man who has no regard for women. Period.
Particularly black women.
And so when you add that they are women of color, that they are assertive, that they are pushing for an agenda for people who are marginalized, that is, in many ways the opposite of who his base is. knowing that he is going to be able to stoke fears of xenophobia, of sexism, of racism. I mean, there is nothing surprising about it. It's detestable, but surprising, no. And what is beautiful, though, is that it's forced all of these other folk in the house to say this is not acceptable.
Yeah. Go ahead, Doc.
I agree with everything that Tasha just said. I'm just waiting because I've watched this man denigrate, and I know it's all women. I understand it, but particularly black women. He has gone in hard on ever since he has been in the White House. There have been women that he's talked about. I know he had his words to say about Hillary Clinton. Enough of them because she was the opponent. But then to turn around,
was a
dog. Refer to a woman as a dog.
You can't do that, bro.
To refer to Maxine Waters, as low intelligence. It's the denigration and the level of denigration that he has. And my question is this: where is the group? Where's the group?
Of white Republican men?
No, of black men. Where's the group of black men that stands up and says collectively, what is your problem? And I can't even say the words that you actually say. FCC won't allow it. But where
it's a podcast.
Where is the group? Oh yeah, sure. But I'm not gonna get down. I'm gonna get into it. Got to still.
Stay
a
funky.
Man curses because he doesn't have the words to say what's on his mind.
Okay.
When is the group of men going to show up and say, where do you get off disrespecting our mother that way, our mothers that way, our sisters that way, our wives that way? The black women as a whole are the center of our universe as men. They are the creators of our lives. They are the nurturers of our children. And to be called a dog by basically a man one step below white supremacy.
Now, did he call one of the members of the squad a dog?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
He just told them they need to go back where they came from, which is the United States. So that wretched, horrible, crime-infested country that they need to go back to fix, it's this one.
Right.
And the one who, Ilhan Omar, who's not a native-born American, has been a citizen longer than his wife.
Still an American citizen.
Hello, somebody.
And just as an African-American man, I am just absolutely outraged that we as African-American people, but particularly our men, could allow this to go on and just be astonished by it. I appreciate Al Green's resolution to impeach the president. I really do. I understand that it was a wish list. I understand it's not going. It's not going to even make it out to K Street. I understand that no one's going to vote for it. I understand. I understood it when he first said it years ago. But as an affirmative gesture to show that Black African American men are absolutely fed up with this ridiculousness, I applaud it 100%. I wish Tim Scott had more to say. I wish he had more to say as a Republican. I understand he tried to utter something, but I wish he had more to say. I wish other black men that are in Congress had more to say. More black men with influence had more to say. But unfortunately not. I hope it steps up. But we've got to put this to a head. Yeah. This is the leader of the free world. And if he's out talking this crazy stuff to his public, imagine what other countries are saying. Right. Imagine how they think about us.
The thing that, because at this point, ever since that dude rolled down the escalator announcing his candidacy, we're surprised by what he says because it's new. Hold on, let me finish. We're surprised because it's something new today relative to what he said, 3 days ago. The actual substance of what he said is new, but in terms of it being surprised that he said something offensive, that's not surprising to me anymore. But what I do have deeper concerns about is what it's doing to the level of discourse in our country. When you have that kind of vitriol coming out of 1600 Pennsylvania, what are your thoughts on?
But here's the thing: I don't believe it's just the level of discourse, right? Because when you talk about discourse, you get into these little buzzwords and this foolishness around civility, right? Like some BS. Like we don't need to be, we're civil, we're being civil with each other. No, what it is that you give a platform for people to act and to speak and to regard their fellow citizens with whom they might disagree, with whom they may have different values, with whom they may have very different ways of moving through the world. It gives you license to disregard them. right? It empowers you if you're a white person to walk up to a young black male in a store who's listening to music and slit his throat on the streets. That's what you are empowered to do when you know that the narrative that comes out of the White House is affirming to you.
Is anyone aware of the story where the white bartender in Dallas basically pummeled a black woman because he said he was blocking her car in or blocking him in?
Right, you're empowered.
So he
you feel
proceeded
empowered
to hit her like 3, 4, 5 times as if he were fighting someone that were his size and his stature, and really, really beat this woman. You know, who in the world would do that? But if you have the type of influence coming down and emanating from on high, and that's not to say he may not have even known anything about what the president's talking about, but the culture is created by things people do in reaction. So whether or not he heard it, if the frequency is for someone else and you start abusing women, that becomes our thing, that's what we're going to start doing. That's what we become. You know, I say this on the show all the time. Marcus Garvey said the true worth of a race must be measured by the character of our women. If we cannot treat women any better than we do, you know, than to sit there and beat a woman in the street or call a woman a dog or jump at the opportunity to denigrate black women who have achieved who've surpassed mountains of achievement by even being in Congress in the first place, then what does that say about who we are as people? What does it say about the women that sit there idly by and allow it to happen? Where are they? There are a lot of women in Congress that I have not heard from. A lot of them I've not heard from about what's happened. You know, what are we doing? Are we getting worn out by all the abuse? Are we getting worn out by all of the rhetoric? Are we getting worn out by all of it and we're just tired of talking about it?
I mean, there is some fatigue.
You're listening to The Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. One of the things that I think about with this president is how, you know, this language is going to stick with us even after the next president is in. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, you think about, you know, how the effect of, we'll just say the Obama effect, how so many people got engaged, not just because it was a black president, but because it was him and the things that he was talking about.
Inspiring.
Right. And, you know, I'm just, you know, I went
and
to
how long did that last in 2016?
Well,
you were on a cloud until about March, and then you realized what you had.
Well, very briefly, I've been doing a lot of kind of historical research recently. Okay, fine. I went to go see Hamilton, right?
That's your historical research?
It was, it inspired some historical research. I'm trying to figure
out how we get there. Hamilton cast on Funky Politics.
That's just
and
like
backstage passes.
But that's just like white people saying, I saw Soul Train. Now, Roots. I know all about black people.
No, it is. It's a good historical review.
It certainly stimulates your curiosity about how the country was founded. And one of the things that I do have an appreciation for, y'all, that has never changed, and I now understand this,
is what?
America's always been on a tightrope on this democracy thing. Like, it's hard. Yeah. Like this whole idea, like we're sitting here now just talking about everything. We didn't say crazy words on the radio, right?
What do you mean by this democracy?
But it was democracy for white male gentry landowners.
Hold on, hear me out.
What do you mean when you say democracy?
A democracy of, by, and for the people.
No, it just sounded good.
You mean with everybody having an equal say in the operation of government?
In principle, yeah. What I'm saying is, no, we haven't realized that yet, right? Yeah. But what I'm saying is, it's against human nature. Human nature, in all of the forms of government that we saw before this one, you know, in modern history, it's been dictators, it's been a lot of turmoil, it's been the government running over people, it's been people getting killed for saying some of the same types of things we say on this show. And what I'm saying is that doesn't just it's very tenuous. Like, we can't assume that democracy is just going to always be here. We're going to have to work for it. Right. The same way that the founding fathers worked for it. We got to work for it now in terms of creating a society where people can talk with each other, where you can disagree about something without being disagreeable, where you can say you have that position, I have this position. This little ground in the middle ain't gonna make you all the way happy and ain't gonna make me all the way happy, but it'll be the best for the most people. Mm-hmm. That requires not just our elected officials, but it requires us as American citizens to be able to have that kind of conversation too.
That's all true.
And I'm scared everybody is getting kind of, you know, off into their own camps and tribing up. And when we tribe up, last time we saw that happen, really, it was a civil war.
Well, I mean, a few things. One, we don't always agree.
Right.
And we don't always disagree. We don't always disagree without being disagreeable. You know, cemeteries are replete with people that had disagreements and on the bitter end of those disagreements. So
Alexander Hamilton was one of them.
I mean, when there's also Alexander Hamilton last night and last night's crap game too that's probably laid away right now because he disagreed about something. I mean, you know, it's about civility. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter who the leadership is, the nature of mankind is survival. His base nature.
Right.
And what we're being thrust into through tribalism is that survival mode. So everybody's trying to survive. I asked you, how long was it before the Obama effect ended? But I think
hours.
It didn't take very long.
24 hours.
Because once you had the inauguration and all the gloom and doom of the United States was laid upon you by Donald Trump's speech, anything that you had, any bliss that you had for that 8-year period before seemed to go away.
I don't think the Obama era is over.
I don't know if it's over or not, but I know it's over right now.
But
there's nothing that's come out of that era. And when I compare what happened with what the president was saying about to the 4 freshman congressmen, go back to where you came from with the issue with Henry Louis Gates and how one thing was settled with a backyard conversation over a beer, at least conceptually anyway. And the other thing goes on and on and on forever with the president seemingly doubling down on his racist comments. That era is over. The era of reason, the era of using of thought, the era of intellectualism is over, at least at this point.
The one hope that I have about this period of American history under the Trump presidency is that the response that the American people have to everything that's happened is going. Let's put it like this: President Obama, at least in part, was a response to President George Bush, right? Like everybody's like, God, can we please get rid of this guy, please? We'll elect the black guy. We'll take the black guy.
As President Bush was a response to Bill Clinton,
right?
As Bill Clinton was a response to George Bush. So it's always been the next for the last few years. That's the way our politics have gone.
Right. And what I'm hopeful for is that, especially, and in some ways, I kind of hope that Trump kind of keeps up the rhetoric because I think he's further marginalizing his base.
I don't know. I feel like his base is doubling down with their racism.
But hear me out. What my hope is, and what I believe can happen, is that the American people, first of all, I think everybody's going to be as up, if not more up, for this election than they were for 2018. And we know how much turnout came out in 2018.
Everybody's going to be up, though.
Right. And so I think the best thing for our government right now is to have massive voter turnout. That's the best way to have a representative government. And if we have that, I believe the response to that will have a more diverse Congress, we'll have a more diverse Senate, and I think we'll have a better representative government.
In a rigged, gerrymandered system, you think that's going to happen?
And rigged, gerrymandered election.
Well,
so your assumption is that all the people that are sitting at home not voting
we gonna vote, but you done drew my district in a way that my vote won't get me my
There are a whole lot
candidate.
of people that didn't vote in the last election that would voted for Trump, and they will come out and vote as well. We just have to govern ourselves accordingly and try to learn how to live together.
And that's another show and another segment. Listeners, stay right there. Don't go away. We'll be right back on Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
And for that girl backstage, I'm Rick James.
R&R on Sports is proud to be on Sirius XM.
So what's R&R stand for?
Real talk and relevant sports issues.
It's racial and relative. We're brothers from the South. We can relate.
R&R on Sports on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
I expect to go to Coachella in a helicopter. I want
Coachella in a helicopter.
Moroccan type.
This is why we came to the KUDZUKIAN Network.
The next Beachella, they gonna drop us on the stage. It's gonna be like BNP said. We gonna sell out under black people and make me feel safer.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
It's like with white people scary.
I know. I feel like with the people here at KUDZUKIAN, once we sell out, like they'll be the ones to be like, all right, y'all acting real light skin.
Simmer down.
Right
y'all acting real light skin.
Black Nerd Power on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
KUDZUKIAN! And Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network, back to put a bow on a very funky show. Very good, team. What did we learn today?
That you actually can rhyme.
That you got 16 bars in your heart.
Well, like 2 bars. Time to put a bow on a very funky show.
Yay!
We got a funky rhyme and a funky style.
That really
I'm
reminded
rhyming.
me.
I ain't even trying.
Yeah, that really reminded me of Ilhan Omar's response. She was like, "You can write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies, and still, like, air out ride." She
She said she made that up. I thought somebody else.
Maya Angelou.
I was
She came
gonna
with
say.
the bars.
Oh, I thought you said Ilhan Omar said it.
She said it, but she ain't come up with it.
So then she just copied.
She gave homage to the great one.
Give your own.
No,
rhyme.
you got to give people something they know. Because what little black girl in the oratory contest did not recite "Still I Rise" at some point?
Speaking of little black girls,
some of them even danced off of.
because we didn't get to this. We didn't get to this early. We got a few minutes here, but there was a little black girl who had to get bussed in Oakland, and that little black girl is now running for president of the United States. I'm talking about Kamala Harris.
True.
Yep.
And of course, it's well documented. She kind of put Joe Biden across her knee and spanked him.
Yep. And then when that little black girl got to school and graduated, she proceeded to lock up several Hispanic parents under her truancy law.
Based on criminal justice policies passed by Joe Biden.
In her position as Attorney General, where she could have chosen not to do it. Let's be real, y'all.
Where she has written in her book about some of her policies that may not have been the smartest, and she's moved to smarter process.
Wonderful. But we can move. I'd like to see her continue to be a senator. And a lot of these folks, because it's kind of like,
I do want anybody to run for Senate.
Who was it that we said?
Who
was it that we were saying last time? I think it's Marianne Williamson saying, "You guys have some great policies. Where are you right now?" Because guess what? Kamala Harris is a senator today.
Right.
The Senate needs help today. Cory Booker's a senator today. Elizabeth Warren is a senator today. You don't get to take off and run for president just because you want to run. This government needs
Actually, this is America. You can't.
I understand you can, but I understand that you can. Don't get me wrong.
When are you announcing your candidacy?
But
I'll show up to the
but here's the
escalator.
thing: you've got a bunch of senators running about things they can do, but I haven't heard a peep from them bringing any of this stuff up when they've been in the Senate. That's the thing that except for
Republican-led Senate.
Except it doesn't matter. I mean, that's not an excuse.
You have to be like Joe Biden.
That's
you
not
have
an
to be able to
excuse.
work
That's not an
across
excuse.
the aisle with segregationists and people who disagree with you.
And he did say that. He did say that. He did say that.
Well, I mean, it happens to also.
You can't
be
get the pass
true.
to say
It's true.
But you can't get the pass and say, well, I'm running for president right now, so I can't pass any policy. Or the Senate's got more Republicans than Democrats.
I have executive powers as a president. I can just wave it into existence.
Well, you got to try.
And that's a whole different thing because, I've heard in the debates a lot of the people talking about, well, if I do this, I'm going to pass executive order, do this and do that, and do this and do that. Basically, what they're saying is,
What about president?
what they're saying is, I'm not going to bother working for Congress. I'm not going to bother working with the Senate or the House.
I don't think it's going to come to that.
But that's a cultural shift that we need to get back.
I think
where we have a president that's basically passing a bunch of because executive orders aren't worth the paper they're written on when a new executive comes in.
Right.
We need long-standing laws that are going to affect how we eat, survive, live, get health care, get education, all the things that are important to us as a nation.
One of the things that I'm hopeful about in this presidential election season is not so much, well, of course, I'm looking forward to a new president. But as the debate continues to heat up, I'm going to be watching these down ticket items, because watch what happens. Like for instance, I just got a hunch. If I got a hunch, I'm coming back to my boy Andrew Yang.
You ain't gonna let us move on.
Yin Yang twin. Yeah.
I think when people hear that guy's platform, right?
Universal basic income is a thing.
He better get some money.
I don't think he's not going to win. But what's going to happen is I think that idea will catch traction with the American people, and then hopefully we'll start to see congressmen, congressional candidates, and Senate candidates running on some of these populist kind of ideas that we're seeing out of the Democratic Party. Because I agree, it's not going to be the president that actually passes a new health care bill or signs universal income into law. It's going to be Congress that does that, and it's going to be the congressmen and women who come in 2020 who are going to help effect that change.
You know what since we're talking about hopes, the hope deep in my heart, I hope Governor Kasich runs.
Want him to run too.
1 for 48
runs against 48. 45.
1 for 48 cases.
That's
what they call him.
I hope he runs.
Why?
Because if we get stuck, if we now are in this world where we have these gerrymandered districts where we have people who are going to appoint crazy conservative judicial appointees. And that leadership will continue to be Republican because of how we've rigged the system.
Which goes all the way back to the founding of the country.
It goes back to the founding of the country. So we've kind of rigged the system. And so what you need is somebody who really has a history and a track record of being fair and moderate enough to work with folk on the aisle who are Democrats and work with folk who are Republican. And I just happen to be crazy enough that if Republicans realize the road that they're going down, that a smarter candidate would be a Kasich and they could.
He doesn't stand a chance in hell.
I understand.
I'm
being hopeful.
I'd like to get right to the point.
And on that note, y'all, it's been real. It's been right.
And it's been funky.
And we thank you for listening to the Funky Politics powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. On behalf of all of us here at KUDZUKIAN, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on The Funky Politics.
Funky Politics, hosted by Lee Eric Smith, Tasha Downey, and Marcus M.D. Ward. Recorded at KUDZUKIAN Studios. Directed, produced, and distributed by KUDZUKIAN.